Okay, Anya, you suggested that we put some of the computational stuff in the cloud. What would that mean, and how would that be different than just doing it on our computers and our laptops or our desktops?
The DNA iPlant has a big grant to provide cyber infrastructure for like people doing research. And what they've said is they have this something called atmosphere, where from the sort of you can make an image of a computer loaded with all the software and whatever data you want, so that they send you basically a URL. Like you can set it up to where if you have a link, you go in and you work sort of on a virtual computer that has all the software that was preset ahead of time. So we wouldn't run into who's on the Mac, who's on the PC, who's got which version of what. Everybody gets access to the same sort of software, and the computation is done on some supercomputers that they get routed somewhere. And basically you can, when you set it up, you can say how many cores do you need for the kind of computation you want, and it's free.
It sounds intriguing. My concern at this point, I mean, the advantage to that would be we wouldn't have to figure out how to install this on all the computers on all these different campuses.
That's right.
The disadvantage is we'd be putting all of our eggs in one basket.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if you could look into that, Anya, and find out how it works. Maybe what we could do is, depending on the will of the group, we could give everybody access to that, have us all try it, and if it seemed to be working, we could use that.
So it would take someone to load everything and create sort of this virtual computer that has everything we need, right? And then from there, they have a way where everyone can sign into sort of the same computer so that we can watch someone doing a demo, or we could have someone just open their own, but with that, you know, everything set up identically for every user, but then you start your own virtual computer. And the only kind of caveat is when you terminate this sort of this virtual session, you have to make sure you know how to get the data you want out, because at some point you lose everything if you don't have a way to kind of save it permanently.
Okay.
Anya, if you will send me the details, I'll get started on trying to install, some of what we have, and then we will see how well or badly it goes. But quite frankly, free sounds like a very good price.
Yeah. So, all right. So I will try to do that. I've talked to a guy, like I described to him some of the trouble we've ran into, and he said, "Oh, we have the thing you guys need, and we're happy to have more users because, that's their sort of mission, is provide cyber infrastructure." Mm-hmm. For sort of biology-related users. All right.
That sounds fantastic.
I will do that.
And if we got to the point where we simply had to maintain one computer and have everybody just download a virtual copy of that computer and access it from a browser, that'd be fantastic.
So, but the thing is, you don't download, you just need an internet connection, and you work from your computer, but all the computations are done on their supercomputers elsewhere.
Even better.
So, like, there is no download, right? It's like a web sort of portal into computing that happens somewhere else. Yeah, so, probably worth a try.
Right. Well, Herbert, let us know how things go with the installation, and maybe we can attempt something in a couple weeks here.
I think we should give it a try. Anya, just email me basically starter information, and
all right.
Okay. Great. Okay. Well, I don't see that Stefan is here yet. I spoke with Stefan earlier today about his perspective on the project. He's coming back from a week of vacation. The poor fellow was suffering in Cancun, but we all have what we have to do. And when we talked, he talked about the need to to have unified protocols and materials for the course, which is something we're working on, and also to incorporate a list of learning goals for each of the different exercises we develop. And so he'll be hopefully joining us a little bit later to talk some more about that. In the meantime, there's Colette. Hi, Colette.
Hey. Is my mic on? Yes.
Yep, your mic's on.
Okay, turn the camera off.
Great. And there's a few people that aren't here yet, but we are recording. I am recording this now, and I think I've got the recording working well. I seem to be able to, I bring the recordings back up after they're fully compiled, and they seem to be running. I never, of course, watch them all the way through because, well, I don't really need to. But anyway, let's start today by going to the weekly lab timeline again and seeing if there's anything else we need to follow up on that. There's the link for it. All right, we have an anonymous grizzly, a kangaroo, Herbert, Julia, Colette. Well, according to my count, one person isn't there yet.
This is
Yes, Rebecca. There's Rebecca. Is everybody in there now? I think we're still missing one person. I have an anonymous kangaroo, and I don't know if that is Ashley or Anya.
I don't think I'm a kangaroo. I'm just still there. This is Anya.
Okay, I've got Ashley. I see you're in the site now. Are you looking at Anya? Are you looking at the weekly lab timeline document?
I have to drive for about 20 minutes to get my kid from one place to the other, so I'll listen in, and then once I'm there, I'll be able to look at the documents.
Okay, I see. Well, yeah, you're doing a remarkable job considering what you're up to there. Okay, so as we look at this document, I think we've got at least something to work on for the first 6 weeks, 7 weeks. And the question I have is, do we need to add any more videos starting from week 7 forward, or any more take-home exercises starting from week 8 forward?
What are the current sentiments on wet lab videos?
This is Colette. I'm not going to need them because what I've decided to do is my regular curriculum in the fall and this new curriculum in the spring, and so they will have done all the wet lab procedures in the fall already. So I won't need any videos for that.
I was just looking at what week 7 has, and then weeks 8 through 12, and it would seem that it might be helpful to people who are trying to do the assays to have some successfully completed assay wet lab assay videos that they could look at. It might help the ones who either forgot or not as attentive as they should be.
Even if I were, that kind of wet. Well, I'm just going to be quiet. That kind of wet lab, that kind of video, my students won't even look at. They won't benefit from it. It just won't work. But
Okay.
So I'm going to be quiet.
Other people's thoughts? Here's what I'm thinking. I think what we talked about was forming kind of discussion sites. I'm not sure if we use a wiki format or what we'll use for students on different campuses that are working on the same structure. And having them share their data as they go along, I think, could be pretty powerful. And so I think that might fulfill that need for the wet lab data results. Okay, we just lost Anya for a moment. Hopefully she'll be back in a little while. I recall the first time that we actually managed to express one of the first plasmid we expressed with an unknown, from one of these proteins of unknown function, purified the protein and ran the assay. The student got the protein purified by about 5:30 on a Friday afternoon, and he just wouldn't leave the lab. We had some substrate, so we started running stuff. So we're swapping texts 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock that night. It was pretty exciting. And I'm thinking that once students start to see any results at all, they're going to be reporting to each other.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a good idea. I don't tend to use videos for wet lab stuff. I do some demonstration in class because I don't think they'll watch the videos. But I think sharing results is a good plan.
Well, and this is actually, I mean, this is the question we can ask as we go through the first year to see if students would like to, would it have been helpful to you to have a video about SDS page or about protein assays or about enzyme assays or whatever, and adjust accordingly. We could we could certainly incorporate them in the second year if there was a student demand or interest in that.
Hi, this is Rebecca. If we have the videos, are we all required to use them, or can we just use our judgment whether our students need them or not? And in either case, how will that affect the assessment issue?
That's a very good question, and hopefully Stefan will be joining us shortly. He had to take his car into the shop, so we'll see if he makes it back. But I agree. I mean, it seems to me that anything that we generate as a group should at least be made available to the students. And one area of assessment would be simply a matter of looking at how many of them actually use the videos that we generated. And I think if we leave these on a Google site, we can use Google Analytics to track that very easily. We might even be able to track by campus.
That sounds like a good idea. I think it would be nice to have kind of a full and robust, whether it's the videos, the assignments, the documentation for the entire thing, And whether we have to use them or not is the other question, but it would be nice to have a complete set so that that is available to anyone who needs it.
Yep, I agree.
While there's a very strong case for uniformity in the primary materials that, that basically define the structure of what it is we are doing, I should think in terms of some of the supplemental materials, there is a case for heterogeneity in the sense of building in what amount to controls. If some people are opting one way and some are opting another, and we have an accurate record of what the students actually do, then this would help to evaluate the validity of our assumptions as to, is it valuable to do this or is it valuable to do that?
Mm-hmm.
But basically having something to compare to something where there is a difference.
Right. But that sounds good, Herbert. Sounds very good. Okay, so at this point, shall we say that the weekly lab timeline is a, I don't want to call it a finalized document, but it's at least at the beta test stage, where people will look at it, and obviously we're going to implement this. It sounds to me like the only place this will be running this fall is at RIT. And so we'll run it this fall at RIT and perhaps make a few adjustments and then run it again in the spring at all the campuses and see what happens. Okay, the next thing we should talk about is the protocols. One of the things that Stefan said were really important to him were detailed protocols so that he'd be able to see exactly what the students would be doing. And I know, Colette, you had started working on some of those, but it sounds like you've got a pretty full plate with your travel and so forth coming up.
Yeah, I really intended to work on the chromatography this weekend, and I just couldn't get to it.
Okay. We have some of the protocols. If I'm going back to our shared site. We have a folder there called Protocols, and we have six different protocols that are described there so far. If we look at the weekly lab timeline, I'm just looking at this to compare it to the protocols to see which protocols we still need to establish. I mean, the protocols that are in there are for the wet lab, so clearly we'll need to write ones for the computational exercises. We have one. Do we have one for transformation? Yeah, introduction of plasmid DNA into bacteria, transformation of recombinant E. coli. Cell growth and expression. Protein expression, there's one called expression of proteins from IPTG-inducible vectors in E. coli. Does anybody have, Paulette mentioned the protein purification. Does anybody have a protein assay protocol written up that you could share with us? I think we probably all do in one form or another.
I have that. This is Rebecca. I've got one for both Bradford and BCA.
Does it matter which one we use? Should we be uniform on that? What do you think?
Bradford's certainly faster.
Easier.
Easier, okay. Well, if you would put that protocol in the protocols folder.
Okay.
Okay. And then there is a protocol in there for denaturing protein gel electrophoresis. We don't have a protocol yet for enzyme activity assays.
I have one of those too.
Okay. Do you have one particularly that would work with chromogenic substrates?
I could probably write something up generally.
If you could write something up generally, and I've got students working on some activity assays. Hopefully, we're going to be starting to grow one of the plasmids tomorrow. Grow up a cell line, express the proteins tomorrow, and I'll have them write up a protocol for screening activities using a variety of substrates. Now, if I look at weeks 8 through 12, enzyme assay exploration with substrate candidates, initial rates, pH effects, role of metal ions, allosteric effects, etc. There's all that stuff there. I mean, do we need to write specific protocols on, to show here's where you can add metal ions, here's where, so forth, changing buffers to see the effect of pH on activity? Or can we just put a sentence in there? Well, this is actually at the level of, we're saying this is level 3. This is authentic inquiry. So if it's authentic inquiry, I think the students should have to figure out how to change the pH to look for different activities, to add metal ion concentrations and so forth. I know that everybody's turning your mics off so that we don't get feedback, but I feel like I'm talking to myself here.
I think we can expect the students to do some amount of work, but we may want in our protocol that we give them to have something like a list of variables, so things that they could try.
Okay. Okay. Good. Well, if you could write those two up, and I will start working with the students here at RIT to write up protocols for the computational aspect of the project. Hi, Anya, I can see your steering wheel. And we'll work on writing up protocols for the computational part of the project. And I've also got Camtasia installed on my laptop, so I'm going to start working on preparing videos just on using PyMol and ProMol and PyRX and things like that. So what we need to do is, I'm thinking rather than meeting again this week, what we need to have people do this week is to take a look at those protocols and see how is this going to work on my campus. I mean, I haven't looked at the protocol, so I don't know if they say we're using this particular kit for a plasmid prep, we're using this particular kit for, or this particular UV visible spectrophotometer. So take a look at those things and see, do most people do you order pre-poured gels to run SDS Page, or do you just pour them?
I firmly believe students should pour their own gels.
Okay.
We pour gels here too, called poly.
Okay.
Given the timeline, I have my students pour the first semester, and then the second semester I buy pre-made.
Okay. So you feel like it's important for them to have experience of pouring the gels.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Agreed, but if we're having them pour gels, then again, that's going to take a lot of time.
Well, who was it just said that you can do it one semester and not the next semester? Maybe the next semester you could have the TA do it the day before. I'm going to have a TA.
Okay.
I mean, my opinion is that all biochemistry students at some point should learn how to pour a gel.
Mm-hmm.
So,
my opinion
but again,
is you never afford to buy pre-poured gels. It's a luxury. I'm amazed that anyone can afford it. Sorry, I'll mute now.
No, that's fully valid. But I guess, when I look at the timeline, if I think about trying to teach a student both the theory of a gel, then making the solutions, pouring the gel, getting samples ready, I mean, that's more than a week of time in the lab.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how this plays out. I mean, we need to implement it on our campuses and see what happens. So, in any case, if everyone would this week take a look at those protocols and see if there's something that would or would not work on your campus, that would be helpful. And then when we meet next week, we'll talk about it. I'm going to turn things over to Stefan in a minute, but before I do, I'm wondering, would it work for us to meet again next Monday at 3 o'clock? Does that work for everybody here? Except Colette, I know you're traveling.
Yeah, that works for me, Paul.
Okay. Maybe I should say if it doesn't work, then
it does not. It does not work for me.
It does not.
Would an hour earlier or later work for other people? Because this is I have to drive a kid across town.
Right. Well, it sounds like I'll need to send out a poll.
Yeah, let's do that.
I'll just do that later today or tomorrow. But we'll plan that our next meeting will be next Monday at some time, hopefully. Okay. Stefan, I'd like to turn things over to you now to talk a little bit about learning goals, what learning goals look like, and also what kind of details you need in our protocols to help you as you think about those things.
Right. So I'm not sure exactly what all you guys been talking about since 3 o'clock, since I just joined a few minutes ago. So if I start to repeat anything that Paul may have brought up, feel free to stop me. But the main thing is I've seen, Paul showed me earlier today that you guys have started making kind of a unified kind of weekly timeline, or kind of just like an order of events that the modules or parts of the modules or labs will be implemented, which is a great first step to trying to get things started to get uniform and kind of as kind of one kind of similarities across different universities. But then the next step is, which it kind of sounded like when I came into the discussion about protocols just a moment ago, is kind of narrowing it down. So what exactly does it mean when we do, since you guys are talking about SDS pages, we can go use that as an example. So what is it that we're trying to get students to learn by doing that? What type of data do we want them to get from running their gels, and how do we want them to use it? And then coming up with an approach such as how we're going to teach them about the theory behind it. Do we even want them to know how an SDS page works, or are we just concerned about how they're interpreting them? Are the skills of pouring a gel important, getting them pre-poured? So it's kind of not only thinking through exactly what the protocols will be for each week or each lab or each module, but also kind of what we really want students to get out of them, what's the point of actually doing the particular labs or modules, or all things to kind of keep in mind when writing up the protocols and thinking of instructions and materials given to students. I wouldn't say necessarily in all cases they need to be super explicit to the students, but it should be things that instructors and educators always have in the back of their head, that there's some sort of end goal and purpose for everything that we do. So those were kind of my 2 cents. So kind of the big things going forward when I start thinking about ways and building assessments for the lab and the curriculum, I think I mentioned it a couple weeks ago, is we do what's called a content analysis, and that's kind of basically I take the procedures and protocols and any other documents that will be given to the students and kind of just analyze it for what are kind of the themes, what are the major topics that are being presented to the students, and then if I'm able to have kind of a list of kind of outcomes that everyone hopes the students will get from that, it's one way for me to check to say, so here's the material we're giving to the students, here's what I'm seeing presented in the materials, does it line up with what we want the students to get out of the labs? And it's a good first step kind of to check as we're making these documents and procedures and for the students to make sure that we're really writing kind of a good curricula that with high hopes that the students will benefit. And then yeah, so I guess that's the main thing, is just kind of something to keep in the back of the head as we start to develop these protocols. I'm not sure if anyone's got any questions for me.
So should we be writing learning goals in the protocols themselves at this point, Stefan?
It could be useful. I mean, that's oftentimes what's done, is kind of sometimes at the beginning of a lab or new sets of experiments, or in our cases maybe a module, just have kind of what's the objective of doing this? Like, why are we doing PyRX? Why should the students care? Some sort of a background, that it's not just like, here's a piece of software we think is really cool, we're just going to play with it and go on to the next thing. Something with some purpose is usually pretty helpful to help as an introduction, to help orient the students, to help a lot of times to help even the teachers. I find when I'm teaching my students and stuff, if I start off with some sort of, here's what we're doing today and why we're doing it, it helps kind of keep everything kind of on task, to have some sort of overarching goal. And it could be helpful that if we're good enough, we could probably set it up that each module, right, we can write it so it builds off of each other, since it's an overarching project throughout the semester. So all these should be building on each other. So the student should be able to look at, I'm using this module, or this module is helping me address this part of my question. So there should be a lot of, should be pretty easy to see why we're having the students do what they do.
Okay. Other questions?
So that means that you wish that for every protocol we write, we also write a list of objectives and how you assess whether they're achieved.
So it's a thing that it doesn't necessarily need to be necessarily blatant for every single protocol, but maybe every single module. And then that way when I go through all the protocols, and then I can come back to the team and say, so these are the themes and the concepts and the topics that I'm seeing referenced the most, or the students are getting at a lot, or this is what I'm seeing from these procedures that the students will be kind of dealing with the most. And then I can say, is these the key things that we actually want the students to be dealing with or thinking about? So it's helpful to have probably an outline for starting out, kind of what the point of each module is and how that reflects to the students' end goal of the research questions that they're exploring. I don't know if that helps answers the question.
I think that'd be useful for the students too, because they do, you know, if they don't immediately get caught up in the idea that this is an inquiry, they're having a roadmap will help keep them from straying. Yeah.
Right.
Right. Right.
That's one of the things students complain about the most. They come in, they do a cookbook thing, and they don't really know why they did it. We want to always keep these kids aware that this is not cookbook.
Right, and as you're talking, I'm getting this image of sheep in my mind. So, and the image of sheep is not flattering. So, okay. So, if we go back to our weekly lab thing. Oh, where did it go? Weekly lab timeline. Would people be willing to sign up to write out a protocol, to review a protocol to include a bit of theory and some learning goals for a protocol? If everybody did one of those, I think we'd be pretty well set.
I can't do any of the wet lab protocols. I don't know how to pour gel. I've never done SDS page. Like, my biochemistry skills are much lower than everyone else here.
Okay.
I can way easily do it for the ones that I already wrote.
Okay.
Ashley, I'm your wet bench half, so I would.
Right. Anya can volunteer for one.
Okay. Well, I mean, at this point, we also need protocols for the computational stuff. And
that I can do.
Because we've so Ashley, maybe you and Herbert and Jeff and I can work on the computational protocols together. And Anya, if you and Mike and Colette and Julia and Rebecca could work on the wet lab protocols, I think that'd be great. But the goal would be to have something that each of the teams would have at least one thing to talk about when we get together next week. So at least I would say a goal would be to develop one protocol for the wet lab, one protocol for the computational stuff by next Monday to talk about. And once we have examples to look at, rather than create 10 or 12 documents, we have to go back and change all of them. We just create 2 documents this week to talk about next week. Then we can figure out, I think we'll get a better feeling for the format we want to have, for the kind of content we need. Also, we'll have Stefan's perspective on learning goals and objectives in the educational aspects, because that's really a different language than I'm used to speaking, and I think for most of us that's true.
Would there be a way, so for those of us on Team Wet Lab, the soggy people, should we, like, many of us probably have much of this stuff, written, like how SDS page works, and it might be instructive and useful anyway, and also save some sort of, redoubling of efforts to just pool those. And would there be a way that we could do that through our Google Doc or something?
Yeah, I would recommend just picking one of the techniques you want to work on this week, dumping all your stuff into the Google Doc. So if you wanted to, for example, if you just wanted to focus on the SDS page doc this week, go in that, put some theory in there, put some learning objectives, look at the protocol, and see what you need to do to make it universal.
So we have a folder called protocols, so we could just sort of start filling that thing up.
Well, Colette already created a document called Denaturing Protein Electrophoresis SDS page. It's a Google.
Oh yeah, and I can see that it's hers too, so that's nice. Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, so you can go in there and share and modify.
Yep.
So if Team Wet Lab would go after the SDS page for next week, and Team Dry Lab, let's go after a promo alignment protocol. Does that seem reasonable?
For the wet lab, do we have some sort of organizing document where people can sign up for different procedures and start them?
And so if we can, if each team can generate a document that we can actually mutually critique next Monday, or saying next Monday, I'll send out the doodle poll and see when we can meet. But when we meet next week, we'll look at those, hopefully come up with a unified approach to preparing documents, and then have the teams go after the other ones, and hopefully within the following 2 weeks create all the other documents that need to be done.
So who's Team Wet Lab here? Me, Colette?
Who is me?
Anya?
So Anya,
Rebecca, and Julia.
Okay. All right.
And team in silico is Herbert and Jeff and Ashley and me. And I'm creating a document right now called Structural Alignment with Promol and Pimol. And that should be in that folder. Yep, it is. It's in the protocols folder. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to spend some time just writing some things out in there, and then Ashley and Jeff and Herbert, if you could take a look at that, and maybe give me. I'll let you know when I've got a version that you can look at by tomorrow afternoon, and then you can give me some feedback on that, maybe during the day, Wednesday or Thursday, and then Thursday afternoon, get it into some kind of a format that we can share with each other on Monday of next week.
Yes.
Sound good?
That's fine, Paul.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Good. Okay, so we're not going to have a group meeting this Wednesday, all right? But there are still, I still want to just talk to people from each of the campuses as we go this week. And I've got, right now I've got a meeting at 4 p.m. Tomorrow. That's 1 p.m. my time with Cal Poly with Anya and Ashley. I've got a meeting at 2 p.m. Eastern time with Bob Stewart at ORU. Paulette, you indicated that you just got too much going on, so we'll wait till we come back. You come back from your trip.
Thank you.
And then on Wednesday at noon, I'll be chatting with Julia and Rebecca from Ursinus. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. And then Thursday the 2nd, Mike, I'll talk with you at 1:30.
1:30. Yep.
Okay. And I already spoke with Stefan earlier today. So, okay. And those would just be check-in meetings, so think about any concerns you have or any ideas you have that we're not getting to in these meetings. Okay? Okay, folks. Well, if there are no other concerns, let's dismiss for today, and we will come back then next Monday to start looking at some of these protocols and learning objectives in theory in depth. Okay?
Yep. Have a good holiday, y'all.
Sounds good.
Before we run away, 2 questions.
Yes.
Can Team Wet Lab chat for just a minute before everyone leaves? And Paul, I still can't get into this folder somehow. Did you re-invite me?
This is the Google Docs folder, the NSF IUSE October 2014.
Yeah.
I will.
I sent you an email last week saying like, knock knock, let me in.
Right, and I tried. I'll try again.
All right, I'll try it again too. But okay, thanks. So Team Wet Lab, we need to write up a protocol that includes learning objectives on SDS page, correct?
Yes.
I believe so.
So how do folks want to do that? Do you want to, Mike, you had the idea of everyone just kind of dump everything they've got already in there and then we can take a look at it, or should we start a single document and people can just keep editing and adding? I'm not sure the best way to go about it.
This is Anya. We have,
A single document is more efficient.
Yeah. One of the concerns I have is we have kind of.
You can do that in a Google document, right?
I think so. Like I said, I'm having a hard time getting into that folder, but hopefully that'll be resolved soon.
Do you use Dropbox?
Well, let's not add another technology to me. Hopefully, I can get things.
Rebecca will figure out the Google Docs somehow.
Okay.
So can somebody, since I can't immediately get on there, can somebody just go in and start a document that we can all then start adding and editing?
There's already one that's for denaturing SDS page that I think we can edit with some learning goals. And I think Anya's been trying to say something.
Oh, that's okay. Do you guys think it's going to be really important for everyone to use the same document? Because I'm thinking the course where to teach this already has a lab manual.
I'm not hearing Anya.
No?
Well, okay, if there's already one on there, then we can start working on it.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody's, okay. So,
Okay,
I'm not sure if I'll have like the flexibility to like change everyone to the protocol that we write up. So I can dump what we have now, but I think we have to include some, like there's here the part.
All right, I'll see y'all later then.
So, okay.
Are we done?
All right.
I think so.
Okay, bye everyone.
Oh,
I think some people can't hear you, Anya, but I can hear you. This is Julia. I think if you dump your document onto the Google Drive, that would be helpful, and then we can use that to inform what we're doing as well.
Okay, let's do that. All right, thank you. My mic, I think it's not working. All right, take care, everybody.
Maybe it was. Yeah, bye.